one. Go ahead, Russ.
I mean, it's interesting because I think when the season started, we were very high on all the LSU guys. There's still a handful that I think, especially like Mansour, that you got to be excited about. He could potentially be the first corner off the board. Um, but there's been some disappointment, and I think part of that stems from their offensive line is not a bunch of seniors. So it's a lot of guys without a lot of experience, which has made it hard for their offense to still play at the same level. I still like Nussmeier. Um, when I watch him play, I have a hard time figuring out, is he a guy that is going to break the mold and be able to succeed as a smaller guy? Is he talented enough to be like a Baker Mayfield? Or is he more like, and the kid's name is slipping my head, the Minshew kid? Not that Minshew is tiny, but he plays a little bit like Minshew when I watch him. Figuring out where he sits between the two, I think that's going to be a lot of where he ends up getting drafted. I like Nussmeier's accurate. He's smart. He knows what he's doing with the ball. He understands from all the experience. Don't rush things. Don't put balls in bad spots. There's a lot to like there. I'm just concerned. There are times you look at him and say, okay, does he have enough there physically to make all the throws at the next level with NFL DBs challenging him? That's the concern. The receivers, we've talked about him a ton. I think we both really like the Barry and Brown kid. We've talked about him since the beginning because he brings a little dynamic explosiveness, a little potential as a returner. The Xavier Thomas kid is another kid that's been there. I like Brown more. I think he's got a little bit more potential at the next level. Although I will say the weight is definitely a concern because when you watch him, I don't know what he weighs, but he looks thin. Their tight end, Sharp, a guy that we have talked about a little bit, not a guy that jumps out as a special frontline elite guy. But when you watch them play, he's a good football player. He's smooth. He's fluid. I don't think he has that top end tight end speed, but I think he's fast enough to be in the mix as a starter eventually. He's got good hands, although he will lose focus and drop an occasional ball. And I think the strength of their team prospect wise is defensively. I mean, it's pretty impressive when you look at Patrick Payton, who came over from Florida State, not a guy that's going to be a first rounder, but he's an athletic kid. You have the Jack Plyborn kid, the other defensive end, plays like his hair's on fire every single snap, just a war daddy of a competitor. I love Harold Perkins. We've talked about him a ton. I think as a college player, both you and I would agree, he's about as good as you're going to get in terms of production, competitiveness, instincts. I think the debate at the NFL level is just where does he fit? Do you keep him at linebacker, playing off the ball where he's had a lot of success? Or do you let him rush the passer, where he's also had a ton of success, but he's not a big guy? I think he's going to measure in at that 6 foot, less than 6'1", about 225, 230. Where does that fit for NFL teams, especially now with analytics? They're very hesitant to put really undersized guys with a hand in the ground. And then, of course, their best prospect by far is the Mansour Delane kid. This kid, the transfer from Virginia Tech, has shown that although he's 5'11", and maybe he's 5'10" and change, we don't know exactly, but even if he doesn't have the perfect height in today's world where NFL teams are dying for 6'1", 6'2" guys, this kid's a player. He's physical. He's aggressive. He's got that that sort of, I know where the ball's going and I'm going to go get it, whether I got to go over you, around you, through you. He's got natural timing to break up passes, and he plays with that confidence that the great cornerbacks play with. So he's a kid I think is actually going to go up draft boards as we get closer to the draft because he is really, to me, the type of corner you want lining up in tough situations on the best receiver. He's got that sort of grittiness and the athletic ability. I love this kid.
I had a first round grade on him at Virginia Tech last year. I was kind of shocked that he came back to school, but you didn't hear a lot of people talking about him. I think making the switch over to LSU, more visible, raised his draft profile. And yeah, you're right. He doesn't have many flaws. What you want to nitpick are physical limitations, the length. I mean, I can live with 5'11" and 1/8 is what I have him at.
Yep.
He is a little light, right? Some of these LSU guys are a little light. And, if I had to nitpick or criticize one thing in Mansour Delane, he can get a little bit grabby at times. But otherwise, he's a lockdown, plug and play. He's my number one rated cornerback, and I think it'll stay that way. You mentioned Harold Perkins. I had him at 6 foot and 5/8 inches in the spring, 224 pounds. he's just a pint-sized playmaker that you do really have to figure out what you're going to do with him, because I do think he's going to lack the necessary height and length to be an effective edge rusher. I know he's done that a little bit, and you've got to really go back, watch the film, and figure out how you want to use him. I might just stick him in as a Mike linebacker and let him roam let him go nuts, sideline to sideline. Whit Weeks, we didn't mention, a big playmaking linebacker. He's been very steady, very consistent. I definitely see him in the day 2 range. And then Barry Brown, I'm with you. I think this is a guy, maybe people don't see it. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes in the first round, especially if he runs as fast as what I'm hearing, because he could test the combine record time, right, for the fastest 40. That's how fast Barry Brown is. And, look for him on gadget plays. Look on dinks and dunks. I mean, the blink of an eye, he can take a bubble screen pass and turn it into a first down or more. And that's what he does. After the catch, he can gain yards with that speed. And, I'll bring it back over to Garrett Nussmeier, because I think, too, especially with Harold Perkins, you got to go back and look at old tape. I think you got to go back and look at last year with Nussmeier and all the things that he did well when he wasn't playing with the strained torso and the patellar knee injury that's kind of bothered him, and especially with the downfield throws. And you got to say, well, hold up, what is this, something that's he being hindered by injury? Because we've seen him do it in the past. Also, you talk about multiple years of starting experience at the SEC level, son of a coach, obviously the son of an offensive coordinator, NFL coach. So, he was in the cradle breaking down the playbook. He's going to be a smart decision maker, and he might just be a game manager that's effective and can dink and dunk down the field and steer your offense. And that's not necessarily the worst thing. I don't think it's top 10 territory, but I think, a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers in the back end of the draft, well, Aaron Rodgers, you'll be lucky if you get another year out of him. Maybe they're a team that thinks about drafting a Garrett Nussmeier, but I think it's a supply and demand league. It's a weak quarterback class. So while I don't have Nussmeier as the top-rated signal caller, I still do think he can find a landing there in the back end of the first round.
Well, no doubt. And think about it. If you're a team with an older quarterback and you're winning, right? So you're picking in the bottom 10 of the first round. Do you look at him and say, hey, we can get this guy that we think can be a starter. We get a value for him, and he can sit for 2 years. We don't have to feel rushed to get him in here. We can let him get healthy. We can build him up, maybe add 10, 15 pounds so he's a little bit more able to withstand the pounding of the league, and then let him take over. So there's some real value for a guy like him to a team that has an older guy who's starting at quarterback, that they want to find that quote-unquote replacement, sort of what Green Bay's done the last 2 times, is use a pick in the 20s, find a quarterback that maybe not everybody is sold on, but that you as an organization think could develop, and let him be the guy to sit for a year or 2. So it makes sense, and I agree with you. I mean, it's hard when your core is hurting to be able to throw consistently with power. I think the concern that raises is, and this is always what it is, it's unfair, but it is, smaller guys that are injured, teams in their mind, they say, well, they're small, that's why they're injured. Is that going to be an ongoing concern at the next level? Whereas bigger guys get injured, sometimes it's looked at as more of a fluke thing because they're bigger, so it's uncommon. So things like that can hurt guys, even though there's nothing Garrett could have done to prevent it.
Valid points. He's Russ Lande.